Authorities allege that this man was behind a chilling murder-for-hire plot, and the intended victim was none other than Chief Border Patrol, Agent Greg Bavino. Late on the night of April 3, 2024, intelligence analysts at a Homeland Security command post near El Paso, Texas, picked up a cryptic intercept from a cartel-linked network. The signal was brief, encrypted, and left no room for doubt. A contracted hit team had been activated. Their target wasn't a random patrol unit or low-level operative. It was the head of the United States Border Patrol, the highest-ranking guardian of America's southern frontier. Within minutes, classified systems across multiple federal agencies began flashing with coordinated warnings. Encrypted cartel chatter referenced a $50,000 bounty and a single coded directive used exclusively by enforcement killers, EER. Execute. The message ignited panic across Homeland Security, Border Patrol, and counterintelligence divisions. This was no empty threat, no online bluff meant for show. Federal investigators had already been tracking the suspect, suspected of orchestrating the plot, a known cartel operative tied to smuggling routes, blacklisted informants, and prior assassination networks. The cartel's intention wasn't intimidation. It was elimination. They weren't sending a warning. They were attempting to decapitate U.S. command. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe, because this investigation reveals just how close America came to losing its Border Patrol chief, and why this plot may mark the beginning of something far more dangerous. By late evening, Department of Homeland Security officials initiated SHIELD protocol, a rarely used emergency posture that deploys multi-layered protection around high-value federal figures. Tactical convoys were repositioned, safe zones secured, and the families of senior personnel placed under immediate blackout orders. What followed was the confirmation no one wanted. The intercepted message pointed to a fully coordinated murder-for-hire conspiracy, one involving cross-border communication, cartel scouts operating on U.S. soil, and financial transfers routed through narco networks specializing in precision. Rapid assassinations often completed in under 90 seconds. For decades, cartels had targeted police, rival traffickers, and politicians throughout Mexico. But the attempt to assassinate America's top border patrol official marked a turning point, a level of escalation never before seen on U.S. ground. Intelligence analysts classified the event as a tear, one political assassination directive, placing it in the same threat category as attacks on ambassadors or senior military leaders. As the night unfolded, new encrypted traffic confirmed that the bounty had been shared with multiple cartel factions, not just one. Homeland Security's analysts quickly identified the motive: collapsing cartel revenues along major trafficking corridors due to intensified joint operations. With profits falling, they sought to send a brutal message: strike the head, and the body will retreat. But the result was the opposite. By dawn, command centers from Arizona to Texas were running synchronized lockdown drills. Icefield offices shifted to hardened entry points, and tactical briefings emphasized one chilling fact: cartel enforcers were now encouraged to target federal agents on duty, off duty. Even at home, this was no longer deterrence, it was psychological warfare. What came next would reveal that the plot wasn't just an attack on one man, but the opening move in a far broader campaign to undermine America's frontline defense. By early morning, the bounty and SHIELD protocol was fully engaged. Homeland Security units launched a sweeping countermeasure operation designed to harden every vulnerable node within the federal enforcement chain. Convoys shifted routes, armored escorts redeployed, and entire residential sectors tied to key officials were sealed under blackout conditions. Analysts confirmed that the conspiracy reached far deeper than a single contract. Digital intercepts revealed cross-border coordination between cartel scouts, already positioned on American soil, and financial pipelines, traced to professional enforcement cells, the kind hired for precise 90-second eliminations. For years, organized crime groups had confined such violence to Mexican territory, targeting rival traffickers, police chiefs, and local politicians. But this time was different. This was an open strike against its leadership itself, a declaration that the border no longer represented a line of safety. Intelligence officers reclassified the case as a Tier 1 political assassination attempt, equating it with plots once reserved for diplomats or generals. Moments later, a second wave of encrypted chatter confirmed that multiple factions had circulated the same bounty. The motive, investigators concluded, was retaliation. Cartel profits were collapsing under joint U.S. and Mexican interdictions. Desperate to restore dominance, They chose symbolism over survival kill. The commander crippled the mission. Instead, the plan backfired. Within hours, Border Patrol sectors from Arizona to Texas locked down in synchronized drills. Tactical teams rotated through fortified entries, while emergency briefings warned that federal officers were now active targets, whether on assignment, at home, or traveling with family. This wasn't intimidation anymore. It was psychological warfare. Then came an even darker bulletin. Cartel communications listed additional high-priority figures linked to border security ICE agents, Homeland Security administrators, and select task force leaders. For the first time in modern U.S. history, frontline personnel across multiple agencies were being hunted methodically, behind sealed doors. Senior officials acknowledged the unthinkable truth. This was no conventional criminal plot. It was a battlefield maneuver. Cartels were adopting insurgent doctrine, seeking to dismantle command and morale rather than face direct engagement. As investigators traced the bounty's digital origins, a new discovery changed everything. A second communication channel appeared, one that pointed to an even larger strategy. It suggested that the attempted assassination wasn't the conclusion, but the opening act of a far-reaching operation spanning several border states inside a classified DHS suite in Washington, D.C. Analysts from Border Patrol, ICE, and the FBI dissected the new data stream. It didn't root through street-level killers, but through logistics coordinators, specialists who managed safe houses, smuggling corridors, and surveillance networks hidden inside the United States. The realization was immediate. This was no single hit. It was a multi-state operational plan. The intercepted messages referenced a codenamed night window. Analysts interpreted it as the strike phase, a planned attack designed to exploit the chief's predictable travel routines between secure facilities and public appearances. Cartel scouts had spent weeks charting those movements. Drone footage and surveillance logs revealed suspicious vehicles shadowing official convoys and unidentified UAVs lingering above DHS compounds, and Texas one flying close enough to trigger a silent airspace violation. Report that never reached the press. Then came the revelation that shifted the mission from defense to containment. Cartel bounty communications expanded beyond the Border Patrol chief. Secondary targets now included ICE deportation officers, regional sector heads, and even relatives of senior staff. The strategy was brutally simple: spread fear, fracture morale, and pressure Washington into retreat. It was classic insurgency logic: destabilize from below when you can't win from above within hours. Counterintelligence divisions elevated to emergency posture. Operation Sentinel Watch was activated, a domestic shield initiative mirroring military force protection standards. Unmarked convoys began shadowing higher-risk officials. Sensitive databases were purged of home addresses. Agents were instructed to alter routes, vary daily schedules, and eliminate any predictable habits the cartel could exploit. The U.S. response had become full-spectrum defense. But what investigators uncovered next would prove that the plot wasn't merely external. Its reach had already penetrated the system from within. The deeper federal agents dug into the encrypted traffic, the more disturbing the truth became. The so-called night window directive wasn't just a strike order. It was the operational phase of a long-term infiltration strategy. Cartel intelligence officers had already embedded civilian assets inside U.S. infrastructure, from low-level contractors working security details to logistics, employees with access to convoy schedules and vehicle registries. In the weeks before the attempted hit, someone inside a federal communications hub had quietly downloaded encrypted route data, the exact file set later referenced in the cartel's planning brief. The download went unnoticed at the time, buried under legitimate network traffic. It was only when investigators matched the file's checksum to the cartel's cloud cache that they realized the unthinkable. An insider had already handed them the map. Homeland Security's counterespionage branch traced the breach to an operations coordinator assigned to a cross-border intelligence program. The man had no prior disciplinary record, no overt signs of radicalization, and no known cartel ties. But forensics uncovered an encrypted digital wallet containing payments routed through a Narco exchange node on the dark web. Each transaction timed just hours before classified. Data transfers. When questioned, the suspect refused to cooperate, but metadata told the story he wouldn't. He'd been the silent link between the cartel's planners and real-time U.S. movement data. In short, the enemy wasn't just outside the border, it was inside the room. Operation Night Window was immediately escalated from counter-threat to full-scale internal security breach. Federal agents were pulled from leave. Cyber defense protocols shifted to combat mode. isolating entire data centers to prevent further exfiltration. A classified memo circulated within DHS warning that unauthorized data migration may have already reached Allied networks. Meanwhile, on the ground, the sense of unease thickened. Tactical agents began rotating shifts under armed escort. Surveillance drones patrolled staff housing. Families of key personnel were quietly relocated to undisclosed safe zones. Border Patrol's communications moved to hardened frequency channels, normally reserved for wartime conditions. But even with layers of protection, the plot's echo wouldn't fade. Analysts feared a follow-up strike, not to kill, but to demonstrate reach. The message was psychological. We can find you anywhere. Then came the final break. Through a high-level intelligence exchange with Mexican federales, U.S. agents obtained an encrypted drive seized during a raid on a cartel safehouse in Juarez. Inside, they found operational blueprints referencing several secondary tasks, all scheduled within the next quarter. One of them listed a codename matching the insiders. The highest login. Eliasa confirmed what investigators had dreaded. The infiltration had been deliberate, premeditated, and designed to compromise U.S. response strategies months before the hit order was ever issued. Within hours, the insider was apprehended under heavy guard. He was transferred to a black site interrogation facility for debriefing. His silence during questioning spoke louder than any confession. The only words he gave before being escorted away were chilling. The border's already gone. You just haven't realized it yet. Those words sent ripples through every level of National Security Command. What if the plot wasn't about one assassination? What if it was a proof of concept, a live test of infiltration capability inside America's own enforcement grid? By the time investigators closed the case file, Operation Night Window had revealed something far more dangerous than a single attempt on a life. It exposed the next evolution of cartel warfare, one fought not with bullets, but with access, influence, and silent betrayal. The capture of the insider didn't end the threat. It ignited a new phase. Inside command bunkers, stretching from Washington, D.C. to the southern border, senior officials launched the next operation, Counterstrike, Directive 7. Its mission was clear yet unprecedented: to expose, neutralize, and dismantle the unseen network that had reached into the federal grid. Every digital footprint, every encrypted transmission, every unexplained data request was now treated as potential hostile activity. The Department of Homeland Security authorized joint task forces to operate under expanded jurisdiction, blurring the lines between domestic counterintel and foreign infiltration response. What had started as a murder-for-hire probe was now a full-scale hybrid warfare investigation. In the shadows, cyber units traced fragments of cartel command traffic bouncing across servers in Belize, Panama, and Eastern Europe. The routes were sophisticated, rerouted through civilian cloud providers, disguised as financial audits or logistics updates. Analysts realized the cartel had evolved beyond street violence. It had gone digital. At dawn, Operation Ghostline went active. Unmarked convoys rolled across the desert, intercepting couriers who carried data drives instead of drugs. Seizures revealed contracts written in layered encryption, murder orders packaged as shipping invoices, payments masked as customs fees. The cartels had become corporations of war. Meanwhile, federal agents initiated Silent Shield, a covert defense plan designed to preempt assassination plots before they formed. Facial recognition, drones monitored high-risk sectors. Satellite links mapped every known smuggling corridor. Across the border, Allied Mexican units conducted simultaneous raids on safehouses connected to the Night Window network. Within 48 hours, 6 suspected operatives were captured. Each carried burner phones containing fragments of U.S. intelligence data, proof the infiltration had been deeper than anyone imagined. But the response came with its own danger. Every move the U.S. made risked escalating an invisible conflict, a war of information, perception, and control. No declarations, no front lines, just silence and shadows. Analysts began calling it the Silent War, a conflict fought in servers and back alleys, where surveillance replaced soldiers and data replaced gunfire. The Border Patrol chief survived, but the event changed everything. Protocols were rewritten, trust was re-engineered, and digital fortifications replaced the illusion of security. To the public, the story ended with an arrest. Inside the intelligence world, it was only the beginning, because behind the encrypted walls of Cartel Command, new transmissions were already surfacing, new codenames, new target, and the same chilling directive repeated again and again: EER, execute. The war hadn't stopped. It had simply gone quiet. In the end, what began as a single intercepted signal evolved into one of the most alarming security revelations in modern American history. A plot that once aimed to silence one man exposed the fragility of an entire system. A network of power, protection, and trust stretched to its limits. From the deserts of Texas to the encrypted corridors of Washington, the battle lines have shifted. This is no longer a fight of territory or trade routes. It's a war of access, fought in silence, in data, and in the shadows between nations. As agencies rebuild their walls and rewrite their defenses, one truth remains. The border isn't just a line drawn on a map, it's a living front. And the next breach may not come with bullets, but with a signal no one hears until it's too late. This is the silent war, the conflict they never announced. But everyone is already fighting. Asterisk.